Okay, so today, let's dive into something I think a lot of people have probably felt at some point in their lives.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do a deep dive on a Reddit post. And
Mm.
this person was feeling really intellectually isolated.
Interesting.
They were surrounded by people, but they just like craved a deeper, more stimulating kind of conversation.
Yeah.
You ever feel that way? Like you're just stuck in small talk and wanting more?
Absolutely. I think this is something so many people can relate to.
Yeah.
What I found really fascinating is how much this post resonated online.
Really?
Hundreds of comments, and they range from advice like find your tribe
Like,
to people being kind of critical, like maybe you're the problem.
oh, wow.
It really sparked a whole debate about intelligence connection and, whether or not wanting these deeper conversations is
Yeah,
snobby or just part of being human.
totally. And it's like this user really hit a nerve.
Yeah.
Like that they're talking about having to dumb themselves down to fit in.
Yeah.
And it's just so frustrating.
It is.
And there's even this anecdote about a friend completely missing the point of a personal story
Oh,
and
no.
just launching into talking about their own day.
Ooh,
Yeah, it's rough.
that anecdote, I think, really highlights the difference between listening to respond and listening to understand,
Yeah, for sure.
which is something I think we should unpack as we go deeper into this Reddit post and all the reactions to it.
Absolutely. So let's start with the post itself.
Okay.
The user, No Yogurt, is essentially venting about their friend group.
Okay.
They're just frustrated with all the gossip, the obsession with social media,
Yeah,
and the lack of interest in self-improvement or deep thinking.
I see.
It's like they're speaking different languages.
Yeah, and some of the phrases they used are so relatable.
Yeah, what are they saying?
Well, they talked about having to translate their thoughts into simpler terms just to avoid sounding pretentious.
Right.
And they're just tired of feeling like they're the only one who wants to talk about anything besides, surface level stuff.
I get that. There's this real longing for connection in there.
Absolutely.
Like they want someone who really gets them on a deeper level.
Exactly. And then you go to the comment section and it gets even more interesting.
Okay. What's going on in the comments?
Well, you've got one side that's totally supportive and offering advice.
Okay.
They're suggesting things like finding new friends with shared interests.
Oh, like joining a book club or something.
Exactly. Or an online forum, basically trying to find their people.
Find their tribe.
Yeah, like, hey, if you're into board games and philosophy, go find the board game and philosophy crew.
Right. Makes sense.
But then you have this other side that's way more critical.
Oh, really?
They're accusing No Yogurt of being judgmental, of having a superiority complex.
Wow.
And then this whole debate starts about whether or not wanting intelligent conversation is actually a sign of being emotionally immature,
Okay.
and whether small talk is like a necessary social skill you can't just skip over.
So it's almost like two different philosophies of connection are like clashing here.
Yeah,
One that's all about finding people exactly like you.
right.
And then another that's more about learning to bridge the gaps with people who are different.
Exactly. And that's where I think understanding personality differences can be really helpful.
Like how?
Well, for example, the Myers-Briggs framework highlights how intuitive types often thrive on more abstract thinking and big picture ideas,
Yep.
versus sensing types who tend to be grounded in the present and concrete details.
So you're saying like someone who loves debating philosophy might be more of an intuitive type,
Right.
while someone whose content chatting about their day-to-day life is more of a sensing type.
Yeah, and those conversations are going to feel very different to each person.
For sure. And neither one is like better or worse. It's just recognizing those differences.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have different ways of processing information and engaging with the world.
That makes sense. But then how do we even define intelligence in this context?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because No Yogurt keeps mentioning wanting to talk to smart people. But isn't intelligence way more multifaceted than that?
Absolutely, it is. And that's where Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences comes in.
Okay.
He argues that there are actually 7 distinct types of intelligence, not just the one measured by, those traditional IQ tests.
7. Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for us.
Okay, so you've got your linguistic intelligence. Those are your wordsmiths, storytellers, people who can just weave magic with language.
Okay.
Then there's logical mathematical, the domain of problem solvers, pattern spotters, anyone who thrives on logic and reasoning.
Okay, so we've got like the classic book smarts covered.
Right.
But what about those friends who are just amazing with visuals, like Artists or architects.
Yes.
Is that a type of intelligence too?
Exactly. That's spatial intelligence.
Okay.
They excel at mentally manipulating objects, understanding spatial relationships, and just creating visual representations.
Cool.
And then you have musical intelligence musicians, composers, anyone with a deep sensitivity to rhythm, melody, and patterns in sound.
All right, so we've got the poets, the mathematicians, the artists, the musicians.
Right.
What about the rest of us? Where do we fit into all of this?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
We also have bodily kinesthetic intelligence.
What's that?
Think athletes, dancers, anyone with exceptional physical coordination and control.
Oh, so they're like geniuses of movement.
Exactly, geniuses of movement and physical expression.
So like Simone Biles or Michael Jordan would be high in bodily kinesthetic intelligence?
Absolutely.
That makes sense. What about people who are amazing at reading others, understanding emotions, navigating those tricky social situations?
That's interpersonal intelligence.
Yeah.
It's all about empathy and
Yeah.
social skills, the
Yeah.
ability to build and maintain those strong relationships.
So those are the people who make you feel really seen and understood.
Yes, exactly. The folks who can mediate conflicts, bring people together.
Okay, so we've got the movers and shakers, we've got social butterflies.
Right.
Is there a type of intelligence for those of us who are more introspective, more in tune with our own inner world?
Absolutely. That's intrapersonal intelligence.
Okay.
And it's all about self-awareness, understanding your own emotions and motivations, and being in touch with your inner compass.
So basically emotional intelligence,
You got it.
being able to manage your own feelings and use that self-knowledge to navigate life.
Exactly. And the beauty of this theory is that it recognizes that people can be brilliant in one area and less so in others.
Right.
It's not about ranking people or saying one type of intelligence is superior.
I like that.
It's about appreciating the diversity of human potential.
That's so important, especially thinking about this Reddit post.
Right.
You know, no yogurt might be highly linguistic or intrapersonal, but maybe their friends excel in other areas that they're not even recognizing.
Exactly. It's like they're judging a fish for its ability to climb a tree.
Totally. And I
Yeah.
think that highlights a key point here.
What's that?
Feeling misunderstood can be so isolating.
It really can.
That need for intellectual connection, for someone who gets your jokes, who follows your train of thought, who challenges you to think differently.
Yeah.
A real need.
It is.
But I'm wondering if labeling others as dumb is more about protecting yourself from vulnerability
Oh, interesting.
than making some objective assessment.
That's a good point. You know, it's easier to write someone off as not smart enough than to risk sharing your true self and potentially being rejected.
Right. So maybe this is less about finding smart people and more about learning to connect authentically with people who are different from you.
I think that's a really powerful insight.
And that brings us back to the importance of active listening.
Yes.
Really tuning in, asking questions, trying to understand another person's perspective, even if it's different from your own.
And remember that anecdote No Yogurt shared about their friend who totally missed the emotional point of their story?
Oh, yeah.
It's like sometimes we're so focused on waiting for our turn to talk that we don't truly hear what the other person is saying.
That's so true.
Active listening is more than just hearing the words. It's paying attention to those nonverbal cues, asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you've heard to make sure you understand.
It's a skill.
It takes practice, but it can totally transform your relationships.
It's like learning a new language, the language of empathy and understanding.
I love that.
And maybe that's the key to unlocking those deeper conversations that No Yogurt is craving.
Maybe so.
Because sometimes the most profound connections come from those unexpected encounters, where we're willing to bridge the gap to see the world through someone else's eyes.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the idea of finding your tribe can be both helpful and limiting.
How so?
Well, yes, it's important to connect with people who share your interests and values.
Of course.
But you also don't want to create echo chambers where everyone thinks alike and challenges are rare.
So it's about striking that balance between finding your people and staying open to new perspectives, even those that might make you uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think growth happens when we stretch ourselves beyond what's familiar.
It's like a muscle.
Exactly.
The more you exercise your ability to connect with people who are different from you, the stronger that muscle becomes.
And who knows, you might even find hidden depths in someone you initially dismissed as shallow.
That's such a good point. It's like we all have layers, and sometimes it takes a little effort to peel back those layers and see what's underneath.
And that effort can be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
Because when we move beyond judgment and connect with others from a place of genuine curiosity and empathy, We open ourselves up to a whole world of possibility.
I love that, a world of possibility, because isn't that what we're all searching for?
I think so.
Those connections that make us feel seen, heard, and understood.
Absolutely. And those connections don't always have to be about, having these profound intellectual debates.
Right.
Sometimes it's about sharing a laugh, being silly, enjoying the simple pleasures of human interaction.
Yeah, we can't be on all the time.
Exactly. Even the most brilliant minds need to unwind and connect on a human level. So true. But I do think no yogurt brings up a valid point about those friends who are constantly complaining but refuse to take action. Yeah, that's a tough one. Like, where's the balance between compassion and personal responsibility? It's about recognizing that everyone has their own journey, their own struggles, and their own pace.
Right.
We can offer support and encouragement without taking on their problems as our own.
We can be a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, but we don't have to be their therapist or their rescuer.
Exactly. And sometimes setting boundaries is the most compassionate thing we can do, both for ourselves and for them.
That's hard but true. We can't pour from an empty cup.
We can't.
And speaking of filling our cups,
Yes.
let's circle back to that whole concept of dumbing down that No Yogurt mentioned.
Oh,
We
right.
talked about feeling like they have to simplify their language and avoid certain topics to fit in.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's a delicate balance for sure.
It is.
On one hand, we all want to connect. We want to be understood. But sometimes it feels like we have to kind of shrink ourselves to fit in.
Right.
Avoid overwhelming others with our big words or our intense ideas.
It's like you're constantly code switching,
Right.
trying to find that sweet spot between being authentic and being palatable,
I like that.
which can be so exhausting.
It can.
But is it always a bad thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't adapting our communication style part of being, like, socially aware?
It definitely can be. Think about how we naturally shift our language and tone depending on who we're talking to.
Right.
We speak differently to a child than we do to a colleague.
Of course.
But when it comes to our core selves, our passions, our intellectual curiosities,
Right.
constantly downplaying those can lead to feeling unseen and unheard.
So how do we find that balance? How do
Yeah.
we stay true to ourselves
Yeah.
while also being sensitive to the dynamics of the conversation?
It starts with self-awareness.
Okay.
Recognizing when you're dimming your own light and
Yeah.
asking yourself why. Is
Right.
it out of fear of judgment? Is it a desire to be liked, or is it truly about meeting the other person where they're at?
So it's about checking your motives.
Exactly.
Like, are you dumbing down to connect authentically, or are you doing it to avoid discomfort?
Yeah. And sometimes it's okay to simplify things,
Mm-mm.
to explain a complex idea in a way that anyone can grasp. That's a skill.
It is.
But if you find yourself constantly censoring your thoughts and your passions,
Yeah.
that might be a sign that you're not in the right conversational space.
And that circles back to No Yogurt's original dilemma.
Exactly.
Feeling like they don't have anyone to talk to about the things that light them up.
Right.
So what's the solution? Just go find a bunch of smart people and call it a day.
I wish it were that simple.
Right.
I think it's more about shifting our focus from finding the right people to becoming the right kind of person in our interactions.
Okay.
What if instead of seeking out intellectual equals,
Yeah.
we challenged ourselves to see the potential for depth in everyone we meet?
That's a big mindset shift.
It is.
It's like instead of looking for a mirror, we're looking for a window into another person's world.
I like that.
But how do we actually DO that? How do we move from judgment to curiosity?
Yeah.
Especially with people who seem well different from us.
It starts with the questions we ask.
Okay.
Instead of sticking to that surface level chit-chat,
Yeah.
what if we ask questions that invite deeper reflection?
Like what?
Things like, what are you most passionate about right now?
Oh, I like that.
Or what's a belief you used to hold that you've since changed your mind about?
Those are good because it's like you're giving people permission to go beyond the small talk to share something real.
Exactly.
But I think the key is also how we listen.
Right? Absolutely. Active listening is crucial. Putting your phone away, making eye contact, reflecting back what you've heard to show that you're not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Right.
And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just validate the other person's experience, even if you don't agree with them.
It's about saying, I hear you. I see you. And even though we might see things differently, I respect your perspective.
Exactly. That's where empathy really comes in.
And that empathy can bridge even the biggest gaps.
It can.
Because when we feel heard and understood, we're more likely to open up to share those hidden depths that might surprise even ourselves.
And I think that's what No Yogurt is really looking for.
Yeah, they want those deeper conversations, those authentic connections.
They do.
So maybe the key isn't about finding smarter people, but about becoming more skillful communicators ourselves.
It's about cultivating curiosity, practicing empathy, and remembering that everyone has something valuable to offer.
And sometimes the most enriching conversations come from those unexpected encounters,
Right.
where we're willing to step outside our comfort zones and connect with people who are different from us.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
It is. It's like we're all students and teachers in this grand classroom of life, constantly learning and growing from each other.
And that's what makes this whole journey so fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. Well, on that note, I think
Yeah.
it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Right.
If you enjoyed this exploration of communication, connection, and the quest for those truly fulfilling conversations,
Yes.
we'd love for you to join our tribe.
Awesome.
Hit that subscribe button for Voices of the Soul and check out the full video version on Shauna Pelage's YouTube channel.
Great.
We love connecting with like-minded souls who are passionate about personal growth and exploring the deeper aspects of human experience.
And if this episode sparked any thoughts or reflections for you, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share your insights.
Until next time, keep those conversations flowing, keep seeking those meaningful connections, and keep embracing the beauty of being human.